With 19 Scudetto titles, 7 Champions Leagues, 12 domestic cups, 7 other European successes, and 4 international titles, AC Milan are one of the giants in world football. Playing in their famous red and black strip at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium, Milan are known worldwide. It's time to continue their success in FM24. Welcome to Milan. You join me on day one of my brand new job as AC Milan manager. We're going to be spending 5 seasons in Italy as we look to put as many trophies in that trophy cabinet to go with the ones already on the screen in 5 seasons. As you may have heard from the little intro video, AC Milan already have an impressive catalogue of trophies and they have won everything in the game so far. It's going to be my mission to add to their successes. We're going to start off by looking at the starting 11 that we are going to inherit, and they are playing in a 4-3-3 system. Now, by doing a bit of research on AC Milan before I started the game, this is actually true to real life, and AC Milan will play this system. So that means that in-game, I will be playing this system, and I will try as best as I can to stick with that system for as long as I can. Looking at this starting 11, on paper, they have a good team to start the game. Might be a few weaknesses here and there, but overall, they're a great starting block for us to build upon. If we go through the players then, they've got Mainan in goal, Teo at left back, Tomori, Tior, Calabria, Krunic, Benacer. They've got Loftus-Cheek, Rafa, Giroud and Pulisic. So the first player to highlight is obviously Leao. He's one of those exciting players that will get you off the edge of your seat. He's quite electric in terms of his pace. He will run at defenders. He's good at finishing. He's a dribbler. He's one of those exciting players. And I think even though he's 24 years old, there is a lot of improvement still to come from this player. On the opposite side, we have Captain America himself, Christian Pulisic. A few eyebrows were raised when he left Chelsea to go to AC Milan. I certainly feel that is Milan's gain and Chelsea's loss. Up the top, we have Oliver Giroud, coming into the twilight of his career now at the age of 36. I do still think that he has a big role to play, certainly in terms of goal scoring in the first few seasons. He may be one long term that is going to be replaced quite quickly. As for the rest of it, a solid back four with Tomori, who used to play in England too, Tior and Calabria. And then obviously we've got Loftus-Cheek, who I'm not sold on as a player, I have to admit. Being in that central midfield role, he may get replaced, although his wages are quite high, so he probably won't be. It's going to be one of those whether we can move him on or not. But as a starting team, it's a great building block going forwards. Looking at the club culture, or the board culture and the club vision, so they want to sign players under the age of 23 for the first team, sign players under the age of 18 for the future, grow the club's reputation, break even in the transfer market, sign players to sell for a profit. They want to work within the wage budget. Then going forwards, in real life, the San Siro is a fairly old stadium. It's started to crumble and they are looking at moving away in real life. So in-game is reflecting that as they are looking to build a new stadium. In terms of the 5-year plan going forwards, at the end of the current season, they want to qualify for the Champions League. They want to challenge for the Coppa Italia. They want to be competitive in the Champions League. At the end of the 24-25 season, they want to reach at least the knockout stage of the Champions League. And they want to work towards winning Serie A. By the end of the 25-26 season, they want me to win Serie A. I then will get a contract renewal, and going forwards, they want to continue to win Serie A. In terms of the fans and the supporter culture, they want us to sign high reputation players. Now, in these kinds of saves, I will turn off the first transfer window. There'll be no transfers in the summer transfer window. We will start our business in January. I don't think that Milan are going to have a massive budget to kick us off, so it may be that that is failed in the first season and we look at that as a future objective, but I do think we're going to fail that one quite quickly. In terms of their expectations, they want to win the league. They want to become the most reputable team in Europe. They want to become the most reputable team in Italy. And finish above Inter in the league. Finish above Juventus in the league too. So, we have looked at the team. We know our starting 11. We know what the board want from us and the fans want from us. The only thing to find out is what will happen in Season 1. Let's jump to the end of the season and kick it all off with what we did in the transfer market. I have now jumped forwards to the end of Season 1 As I said, there were no transfers in the summer transfer window. We had to wait until January to get active in the transfer market. The first thing that we did was let a few players go, the first of which was Simon Kajar. As you can see, he's now 35 years old, coming into the twilight of his career. We had an offer coming from Al Sadd and we decided that it was acceptable. We allowed him to move on. The next player to go was Yassin Adli, and he also went to Al Sadd. They offered us around £13 million, which isn't big money, but considering he's 23 years old, he probably could have improved a bit. But I do think that we have other options at the club, and there are players that I want to sign that play in a central midfield role. I don't think he was going to fit into my plans. The last player to leave was Luka Jovic. This is a player that I really do not know how to judge. He has had a bit of an up and down career. Real Madrid, Fiorentina, came to Milan. Wasn't really going to be playing too much in terms of a striker position because of Giroud. So Everton came in with a bid. We decided to allow him to move on. So even though we've recouped a bit of money, the original transfer budget was 500,000. We started to add a little bit of that money that we recouped to the 500,000, and the first player that we reinvested in was Cade Cow. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, this is exactly what I said I would do. The first player that I would sign on FM24 is Cade Cow. He's a player that I've followed for a few years now for the San Jose Earthquakes, and I really do think in real life he has a shot at being a big player if he can secure himself a move to Europe in the next couple of years. Watch out for him in the 2026 World Cup. In terms of in-game, 17 pace, 15 acceleration, dribbling of 13, finishing of 11, first touch of 12. He's a player that can rotate in when Pulisic and Leo aren't playing. The next player to come in was Filippo Mane. He is a player who actually came in on loan, but we do have an option to buy in the summer. He's young at 19. He's Italian, so he fits in with the club registration requirements, and I think he's a sound purchase once he comes in. We will pay around £4 million for him. And the final player to come in was Cher N'Dour. He's another one that comes in on loan from Paris Saint-Germain. He's been at Benfica, he's been at PSG, and I think we're going to pick him up for around £7 million on a permanent deal, which I think is an absolute bargain. Still only 19 years old, plenty of room for development. So those were the three players that we allowed to leave, the three players that have arrived. The next thing to ask is, how did they perform and how did we get on in the competitions? So we're starting off with the Coppa Italia, where we entered at the third round stage. Now, we beat Cosenza 2-1 in the third round to qualify for the quarterfinals, where unfortunately we were drawn against Inter Milan and they would defeat us 1-0 to knock us out at the quarterfinal stage. Next up was the Champions League. Now, we were drawn in a group that consisted of PSG, Manchester United, Galatasaray and ourselves. And unfortunately, we were knocked out in the group phase of the Champions League. We did play 6 games. We won 2, we drew 2, we lost 2, only had a 1 goal difference, and we finished on 8 points. That was 3 behind Manchester United, who qualified in second, and we were 5 points off of PSG, who went through as group winners. Now, that obviously means that we were knocked out of the Champions League, but we would move across to the Europa League, where we would join the competition at the knockout playoff round. So we were drawn against LASK Linz. We beat them 6-2 on aggregate to progress into the round of 16, where we were drawn against Liverpool, where we actually beat them 8-5 on aggregate and had a 3-3 draw in the second leg. In the quarterfinals, we were drawn against Freiburg. We beat them 11-4 on aggregate and beat them 6-4 in the second leg in the quarterfinals. Then in the semi-finals, we were drawn against Celtic, where we went through 3-2 on aggregate, winning the second leg 2-1. And that meant we got through to the final, where we would play against Real Sociedad, and we would go on to win the Europa League. So a European trophy in the first season is absolutely fantastic. Then in the main competition, in Serie A, we would go on and win Serie A 2. We would amass 94 points from our 38 games, and it breaks down like this: 30 games played, 4 games drawn, 4 lost, a goal difference of 62, and 94 points. That means that we were well ahead of Napoli, Juventus and Inter Milan, and we won the league convincingly. Looking at some stats, we have Oliver Giroud, who got 32 goals in the league. He beat Ciro Immobile to the top goal scorer award. He had a 7.46 average rating, and Teo Hernandez got a 7.32. Pulisic got 12 assists. Player of the Match awards, Giroud with 8, And yellow cards, Teo Hernandez got 12. One other side note to Oliver Giroud, he was actually voted the best striker in Europe for the 23-24 season, which was absolutely amazing. He was an absolute goal machine in our tactic. So, a fantastic first season that includes winning Serie A. We won the Europa League. It's a shame about the Champions League and the Coppa Italia, but it's a great start in terms of the competitions. Looking at the finances going into season 2, and it doesn't look great, does it? We have a transfer budget of £13.5 million, a wage budget of £1.9 million. We are spending £1.6 million currently on wages. The club have an overall balance of £14.4 million. So the big question here is, what do we do with that transfer budget? We're probably going to have to sell players if we want to have a full rebuild of the squad. It looks probably a little bit bare in terms of numbers. We might need a bit of squad depth, so it's a question of, do we raise funds and then do we invest it in one player, or do we try and spread that around? Also, is that £13 million wise to spend when the board only actually have £14 million in the bank? In terms of the club vision, board vision, actionable objectives: grow the club's reputation, they're reserving judgment, break even in the transfer market, we're on course, sign players to sell for a profit, reserving judgment, work within the wage budget, on course, build that new stadium, is in progress now. In terms of the 5-year plan, current season, be competitive in the Champions League, passed, reach the latter stage of the Europa League, passed, qualify for the Champions League, passed, challenge for the Coppa Italia, failed. The board say our job security is secure, and they give us a C+ in terms of our feedback. Our board cultures: sign players under the age of 23 for the first team, very disappointed. Sign players under the age of 18 for the future, disappointed. So those are difficult anyway, because the players that we lost had to replace with experienced players. So not too fussed about that, but it would have been better if we would have scored a bit higher. In terms of the supporters, so the supporter culture of signing high reputation players, I did state straight away we would probably fail on this one, because we have no chance of signing high reputation players with 500k in the bank. Supporter expectations: become the most reputable team in Europe, reserving judgment. Most reputable team in Italy, reserving judgment. Finish above Inter, finish above Juventus, pleased with both, and win Serie A, we have passed. So all in all, it's good feedback from the board and the supporters. Supporters being more kind than the board in terms of our grading on the season. To round us off for season 1, I'm going to have a look at the squad. I'm going to do this in 2 different ways. So firstly, I've loaded in what I think my best 11 across this current season is, and I've put that into the tactic to show you that we are running the 4-3-3 as I promised at the start of the episode. And then I will go into the squad planner, have a look at the assistants 11, and have a little look at the advice that he's given for season 2. So to start us off then, let's have a look at my 11. So I've gone with Milan in goal, Hernandez at left back, Tomori, Thiaw, Calabria as a back 4, Pobega, Loftus-Cheek and Sharon Dorr. Now I think Sharon Dorr is suited to this position. It might not be a popular choice, but I do think that once he signs on a permanent deal, he will slot into there and he will make one of those positions his own, because he's a brilliant footballer. On the left we've got Leao, Chukwueze on the right, and then Giroud up top. Chukwueze against Pulisic was a difficult call. Both of them have contributed brilliantly across the season. We look at Rafa Leao and some of the stats for his season. So he played in 37 games, scored 13 goals, had 9 assists, 5 Player of the Match awards, and a 7.17 average rating. In terms of Chukwueze, as I said, a rotation piece really. In terms of his stats, 29 games played, 4 goals, 5 assists, 1 Player of the Match award, and a 6.96 average rating. And at the top of the pitch, Mr. Oliver Giroud. If we look at his stats, you can see why he was voted the best striker in Europe. 35 games, 32 goals, 6 assists, 8 Player of the Match awards, and a 7.46 average rating, all at the age of 37 years old. Is the man ever going to slow down? I don't know, but he's probably one that we're going to have to look at long-term replacements for going into season 2. I do think that it's probably best to try and get some kind of reinforcements now, so when he does leave eventually, it's not such a big hole to fill. Other than that, maybe a midfield player needs to come in, and then across the back 4, maybe we need a bit of depth at the wing-back positions. Let's go and look then at what our assistant manager thinks. In terms of his best 11, he's picking Milan in goal, Teo Hernandez, Kalulu, Tior and Calabria. So Kalulu in instead of Tomori. Benica, he's got Reinders, Loftus-Cheek, and then Leao, Giroud and Chukwueze. So mostly the same as my best 11. He has gone with one or two slightly different. If we then go into the assistant report and have a look at some of the stats. So in terms of weaknesses, it's corners, overall depth, finishing. Even though Giroud has got all of those goals, he thinks that the finishing is bad. So that probably also tells us we need to go and sign a striker for season 2. Flair, free kick taking, goalkeeper depth, transfer budget, 13.5 million. It doesn't leave us much room for manoeuvre on that front. So even he knows that we need more money. Looking at the strengths though, we have good marking, command of area for the goalkeepers, communication, long throws, leadership, top goal scorer with Giroud. And we also have a number of youth prospects, including Bartasaghi, Zeroli, Traore, Darius Stelmach, Sia, and Filippo Scotti. So there are things that we can build upon. There are youth that can come through. And I think we can move one or two players on to get us another few players to come in at the end of season 2, or the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, and then try and build this squad as we go through the save. But all in all, a fantastic season 1. We have won Serie A, we have won the Europa League. It is a successful season going forwards. To say we have won 2 trophies in the first season is absolutely fantastic, and it's certainly a building block for us to go on with. To kick off episode 2, we are going to go through all of the transfers that happened in season 2, starting off with Divock Origi. He was the first player to leave the club in season 2. He had completed his loan deal at Notts Forest, came back to the club. It was clear he didn't have a future here, so we allowed him to move to Al Tawoun. The next player to leave was David Calabria. This wasn't a player that I actually intended to sell. Tottenham came along with a bid of around £45 million. He turned his head, he wanted to go. I wasn't going to keep an unhappy player, so we allowed the deal to go through. He's off to London. The next player to leave the club was Alexis Salamakers. He wasn't a player that was going to get into my first 11. He was just a rotation piece. Monaco offered us around £10 million, so not the most, but with the transfer budget being pretty pitiful from the end of season 1, we needed to get as much money in to start rebuilding the team as we could. So he was allowed to go to Monaco. That meant that we could start rebuilding, and the first player that we brought in was Lorenzo Luca. Now obviously at the end of episode 1 you may have seen that finishing was a problem for the team in terms of a weakness. Giroud is getting older. We're going to need a striker to replace him. I feel like this is a safe one. He's Italian. He has played in the league, obviously. He's a wonder kid from previous FM games, and he knows where the goal is when he's called upon. The next player to come in was Al Chadili Bichiabu, a young player who is a strong, tall defender, 6'5", strength of 16. At the age of 20, he looks like he could be an absolute beast. Can play at left back, can play at centre back, can even be a makeshift DMC too. So it made a lot of sense to bring him in. The next player to come in was Peter Musa. He's another one that comes in a view to replace Oliver Giroud long term. He's a player who is very much like Giroud, 6'3", 16 strength, 17 finishing. I think he's a player that if we can get the ball up to him, he will score goals for the team. The next player to come in was Josip Stanisic. He's a player that I really like. I think he's a good player in real life as well. He can play anywhere across the back three, can also step into midfield, strong and dependable. I think he's a sound purchase and will probably be with me for the rest of the save. Next player to come in was Luca Lipani. He is a young Italian, which helps us with our registration for the squad. Can play as a defensive midfielder, can play as an orthodox midfielder. Good on the ball, good passing, jumping reach is good. He's 6'2". He's a strong player. He will do well in the centre of our park once he is fully developed. Wisdom Amay was the next player to come in. He's another Italian, which again helps with the squad registration rules. Can play anywhere across the back three, which is what we like, a bit of versatility in our defenders. Does have a bit of developing to do, but he is only 19 years old, so I think he's a sound purchase. I think we only paid around £2.5 million for him. And the final player to come in in Season 2 was Serginho Dest, another one that can play as a left back or a right back, can move forward as a wing back, can even go further up the pitch to play as an attacking player too. He's one that would probably be a rotation option, but could force his way into the first team. Again, he was cheap, was on the transfer list for around about £6 million. We swooped in and picked him up as a safe bet. So that's all the transfers that were done, but there was one other bit of news, and that is concerning Oliver Giroud. So obviously at the end of episode 1, he had scored his 32 goals, was voted the best striker in Europe, and he decided that was his mic drop moment and it would be Olivier out. He decided he would call it a day, hang the boots up, go out on an absolute high, and I couldn't blame him one bit. So it meant that those strikers that we signed now have big boots to fill. So those are the players that are left, the players that have come in. The next thing to look at is how did we get on in the competitions. Our season would start off in the UEFA Super Cup playing against the Champions League winners Bayern Munich. We would beat them 1-0 to lift the UEFA Super Cup with a goal from Cade Cowell. In the Supercoppa Italiana, we would go up against Fiorentina, where we would lift that trophy by beating them 3-0. In the Coppa Italia, we would join the competition at the third round, where we would beat Pisa 4-1. In the quarterfinals, we would beat Juventus 1-0. In the semi-finals, we'd beat Atalanta, but it took penalties to get us over the line. And then in the final, we'd beat Inter Milan 2-1 to lift the Coppa Italia. In the Champions League, it was all changed. Gone is the group stage, in is the league phase. And in the league phase, we would finish in 18th place, having played 8 games. We would win 3, draw 3, lose 2, have a goal difference of 2, and we finished on 12 points. That was 3 points behind Paris Saint-Germain, who qualified automatically in 8th, and it was 7 points behind Atletico Madrid, who won the league phase. That would put us into a knockout playoff round, where we were drawn against Freiburg. Against all odds, we actually got knocked out. We lost 4-3 on aggregate and lost the second leg 4-1. That means that the big one for us this season was Serie A, and we would go on to win the league convincingly, scoring 101 points from 38 games. So from the 38 games, we had 32 wins, we would have 5 draws, and we would only taste defeat once. That was in a 3-2 loss to Napoli. We had 94 goal difference and 101 points. We had Leao finishing second in the league, but our top goal scorer with 19 goals. He had an average rating of 7.62 and Theo Hernandez 7.61. Chukwueze would get 15 assists. Leao would get 7 Player of the Match awards. Mainan would get 13 clean sheets. And yellow cards, Stanisic and Tomori would get 13 each. So, another fantastic season in Season 2 sees us win Serie A, the UEFA Super Cup, the Coppa Italia and the Supercoppa Italiana. Looking at the finances heading into Season 3, and it's a lot healthier than it was coming into Season 2. Starting us off with a transfer budget of 29.7 million. We have a wage budget of 2.1 and we are spending 1.9. So a little bit of room there in the wage budget to play with. A transfer budget that is decent, and if we move 1 or 2 players on, we could actually bump that up quite a bit, I think. We now have an overall balance of 103 million, which is a massive improvement on the 14 million we had going into Season 2. In terms of the club vision, let's have a look at how we have got on there. So for the actionable objectives, grow the club's reputation, pleased. Work within the wage budget, on course. Increase commercial revenue, pleased. In terms of the end of the current season, reach the Champions League proper, passed. Be competitive in the Super Cup, not judged, but we won. Challenge for the Serie A title, we won the league. Challenge for the Coppa Italia, we won that. And be competitive in the Supercoppa, which we also won. So the board this time have given us a B for our feedback, and our job security is secure, but they are still devastated that we haven't signed enough players under the age of 23 for the first team. In terms of the supporters, a C+ from them, so not as good this season. The culture, strive to make progress on and off the pitch, become the most reputable team in Italy, passed. Finish above Inter in the league, satisfied, which I'm not too sure about. We absolutely smashed the league. Inter were nowhere near us. Finish above Juventus in the league, pleased. The other notable highlights, pleased with the 8-1 win against Pisa. highly impressive 6-0 win against Torino and the 2-1 Coppa Italia final against Inter. But they are disappointed with Bicciabu's recent performances. So all in all, it's a good feedback from both the board and the supporters, and one going forwards that hopefully we can build upon. To round off season 2, I'm going to look at what I think is my best 11 across the season. Starting off looking in the tactics page, so you can see that we are still using the 4-3-3 that Milan would play in real life. And I would go with Milan in goal, Hernandez, Tomori, Tior and Stanisic as a back four, which I think is absolutely solid. Pobega, Loftus-Cheek and Ndor in a middle three. Sharon Ndor has been fantastic this season. Leao on the left, Chukwueze on the right and Lorenzo Luca at the top now that Giroud has decided to hang up his boots. Quickly show you Sharon Ndor. So he hasn't played as much football as you would think, but when he was given his chances, he played 11 times. He scored 3 goals. He had a 6.81 average rating, and he really is building into the team now. He's developing into that role in the middle of the park. On the left-hand side, you have Rafa Leao, obviously a star player, and he's another one that has performed well this season with 30 appearances, 19 goals, 7 assists, 7 Player of the Match awards, and a 7.62 average rating. Chukwueze again was rotating with Pulisic on the right-hand side. If we go into his stats, 36 games this season, 12 goals, 15 assists, 3 Player of the Match awards and a 7.2 average rating. And then Lorenzo Luca and Musa were rotating at the top of the pitch, but he did chip in when required. 11 total appearances, 8 goals, 2 assists, 1 Player of the Match award and a 7.18 average rating. So all in all, I think that is probably my best 11. If we go and inquire with our best 11 from our assistant manager, he goes with Milan in goal, Hernandez, Tomori, Tior, Stanisic, Pobega, Loftus-Cheek and Reinders in the middle, Leao, Okafor up top and Chukwueze. Okafor's an interesting one because he has been played as a rotation option for Leao and also with Pulisic when Chukwueze wasn't available. And then Reinders in the middle is not really my cup of tea as a player. I think that he might be one that's on the chopping block going forwards. I think we can get a better player in to replace him. And I think Sharon Ndor actually does a brilliant job in that role, as I keep saying. If we go and look at the assistant report then and look at some of the strengths and weaknesses. So overall depth, not a great deal of depth beyond the first team. That is probably a fair weakness. I think now that we have a £29 million transfer budget, we can start to plug gaps where we have them in the squad. Goals against, player struggling for form is Matteo Gabbia. Then we've got corners, eccentricity. Close to half-time, conceded a lot of goals in the last 15 minutes of the half and goals against. But the strengths, jumping reach, kicking and communication for the goalkeepers, also command of area. Best player form, Rafael Leao has been in fantastic form, with an average rating of 7.66 in his last 5 matches. He has been brilliant. Dribbling is positive, and top goal scorer, Leao's 19 strikes had him second in the league. So that is a roundup of Season 2. We have been fantastic. We won the league in dominating form. Won the Super Cup, won the Coppa Italia, won the Super Coppa Italiana to go with it. So building blocks to go forwards. The Champions League is now the big goal. We have won the league twice, won the Super Cup, won the Cups. Champions League is the next one to tick off. To kick off episode 3, we are going to cover all of the transfers that have happened across season 3, starting off with Pierre Kalulu being allowed to go to Borussia Dortmund. Now, it wasn't a player that was on my list of players to sell really, but they came in with a bid of about £40 million, decided that that was actually enough for us to consider the move. Adding that 40 to the 29 that we already have was a good start for the transfer window. The next player to leave was Christian Pulisic. Now, this is a player I really didn't want to sell. He, though, in the summer decided he didn't want to be a rotation option with Chukwueze anymore. He wanted to leave. My only down point to this transfer is that he moved to Juventus in the same division because they paid around £90 million for him, which is actually a good profit for the club. And I thought it's a great chance for us to start reinvesting a lot of money in the playing squad. Next to go was Tommaso Pobega. He was another one. As soon as a bid came in from Real Madrid, it was about £40 million. He decided he was off. He didn't want to hang around anymore. Wanted to go to Spain, so we didn't stand in his way. The next player to leave was Peter Musa. As I said in episode 2, it was a bit of a toss-up between him and Lorenzo Luca, who would replace Giroud. Luca ended up winning out. Musa, I don't know what it was about him. He just didn't seem to perform when I needed him to perform. And it's just one of those things where I think we could probably go out and in the long term get a younger striker to come in and be a project going forwards. Aston Villa paid roughly what we paid to Benfica. So it was nothing ventured, nothing gained. He basically was a free transfer because we got the money back that we paid for him. That meant that there was holes now in the squad. But we had a lot of money to spend. So let's show you the first of the big signings. Isn't what you would expect. Tanguy Ndombele is probably not what you would be thinking in terms of a big rebuild, but this does have method to its madness. And Ndombele was available for around £5 million from Tottenham. He has experience in big leagues before and has played well. He's just a stopgap. He's a player that can come in and play a couple of positions and will do a decent job for the money we paid. Next up is Dario Esugo, one of the wonder kids in FM24. He's brilliant in real life for Sporting and he's going to go on to be a big player. Luckily for us, at the age of 21, we were able to snap him up for not very much money and he plugs straight in as a defensive midfielder and he will develop into that defensive midfield role to make it his own. Hugo Ekitike is the next player. He's one that comes from PSG. This one was a bit of a snap signing. Once Musa had left, we needed a striker. Had a look at PSG and he was available. Only cost around 12 or 13 million pounds, so not the end of the world. If it doesn't work out, we can always move him on. But as I said, he's a younger player, somebody different to Peter Musa. He's still 6'2" and he still does have decent finishing. But hopefully he can develop as the game goes along and he will have a job to do if Luca gets injured or we need a rotation piece. The next player to come in is a big name. It's Heung-min Son. This is one of the new features of the game, the intermediary. So on a report, we got an intermediary report and we were offered Heung-min Son for £30 million. Had a look at him and thought, 33 years old, he's demanding £300,000 as an impact sub. Go on then, we'll take a risk on that. So he's going to slot in either on the left or on the right. It may mean that Leo moves to the right and Son plays on the left, but he's such a big name, could not leave him on that report. So we went and snapped him up. Absolute no-brainer for me. And the final player, the most expensive player in Season 3 is Florian Wirtz. We had to pay £85 million for him. But my gosh, is he worth every single penny. He's going to slot into that midfield. So whether it's Andor or Loftus-Cheek that's sacrificed, doesn't really matter. He's going to be our wonder kid star. It says there he could still improve and he's a 4.5 star rated potential ability and current ability player. I think he's absolutely fantastic and everything that we need in the middle of the park. So with those upgrades in the playing squad, how are we going to get on in the Season 3 competitions? After winning the Supercoppa Italiana in the previous season, we got nowhere near it this season. We were knocked out in the semi-finals of that by Fiorentina as we lost 4-2, so that will probably disappoint the board. In the Coppa Italia, as always, we came in at the third round. We beat Salernitana 6-2 in the third round to go into the quarter-finals, where we would face off against Inter. We beat them 3-1. In the semi-finals, we would play against Atalanta, where we would win 3-1 on aggregate. And then in the final, we would face off against Juventus, where we absolutely dominated them. We won 6-2 to lift another Coppa Italia. At the end of episode 2, I said that the big one that was missing was the Champions League. So this season, we started off in the league phase again. We did a bit better this time around. We finished in 9th place, having played 8 games. We won 5 of them. We drew 1. We lost twice. Had a goal difference of 7 and finished on 16 points. So we actually only missed out on automatic qualification for the next round by goal difference. Finished 6 points behind Liverpool, who won the league phase. That would again put us into the knockout playoff round. We would be drawn against Borussia Dortmund. We dispatched of them 6-4 on aggregate. In the round of 16, we would come up against PSG, where we would win 7-4 on aggregate. In the quarterfinals, we would knock out Aston Villa 3-0 on aggregate. Progressing to the semi-finals, we'd beat Chelsea 8-3 on aggregate, and that would put us in the final against Manchester United, where Unfortunately, we would lose 3-1 in the final. We got oh so close, ever so close. Unfortunately for us, it just was not our day, and Manchester United were the better team on the day. That once again leaves us with Serie A to win, and win Serie A we did. This time around, we amassed 92 points from 38 games, and to break that down, we won 29 times, we drew 5, we lost 4, had a goal difference of 74, and finished on 92 points to win the league by 5 points from Inter Milan, which should hopefully please the supporters. We were miles clear of Napoli and Lazio, who finished 3rd and 4th. This season, we struggled for goals in terms of our main striker. We did spread them around. We do not have a player in the top 3 for goals scored for a change. Leao got a 7.37 average rating. Son got 16 assists when he was playing the games. So it was a decent enough league campaign for us. I think in terms of the goals, we will go into that a little bit when we go into the squad and show you what we can improve. But once again, we have had a fantastic trophy haul. Serie A, Coppa Italia, and oh so close in the Champions League. Looking at the finances, as we head towards Season 4, we can see that we have a transfer budget for next season of £28 million. We have a wage budget of £3.3 million, but we're only spending £2.9. In the bank balance now, the club have £167 million. So everything is going in the right direction. Everything is healthy in terms of the finances. And I think going forwards, we really can start to invest in the playing squad if we can just get that transfer budget up just a little bit more. In terms of the club vision, the actionable objectives now are work within the wage budget, not a problem. Maintain the club's status as the most reputable team in Italy, and we're on course for that. In terms of the 5-year plan, at the end of next season, they want us to reach the latter stages of the Champions League and win Serie A once again. On the right-hand side, the board have scored us a B. They are pleased with last season's performance. The board culture now is just to strive to make progress on and off the pitch. They've finally dropped the under-23s for the first team because it's not realistic when you're in a rebuild, really. If you need players for here and now, when you are losing experienced players, you need experienced players. So they've finally given up on that one. Their notable highlights: pleased with the impressive 5-0 dismantling of Roma, pleased with the 2-0 victory over Lazio, delighted with the positive atmosphere in the changing room. They are criticising us for losing in the Champions League final and for a defeat against Spezia in the league. In terms of the supporters, are they happy? A B from the supporters is not bad. Strive to make progress on and off the pitch. Finish above Inter in the league. They're satisfied. I don't know how much more we can do. We've won the league. They finished 2nd. Finish above Juventus. Very pleased. Maintain the club's status as the most reputable team in Italy. Just like with the board, we're on course for that. They are pleased with the 6-2 Coppa Italia final triumph, the 5-0 dismantling of Roma, and an 8-3 aggregate win over Chelsea in the Champions League. They're disappointed about the 2-1 loss to Spezia and the performances of Avantaggiato and Dante Banfi. So our job security is still secure. We're not moving on that, but we have had some good feedback, and again, it's more building blocks to build upon, hopefully to get A grade as we go forward into season number 4. To wrap up season 3 and head into season 4, we are going to look at how the squad is lining up. As always, going to look at the best 11 from my point of view in the tactic that we are using, which is still the 4-3-3. Then we'll look at the assistant manager's opinion before wrapping up to go into season 4. So my best 11 from this season was Milan in goal, Hernandez, Tomori, Tior and Stanisic. We've now got Asugo as the defensive midfielder. Wirtz and Lipani are my midfield centre partnership because they are fantastic. Son on the left, Leao has moved to the right now, and that means that Okafor is the striker, which was predicted by my assistant manager last season. He has overtaken Luca in terms of that. If we look at Son's contribution coming in as a £30 million player, I believe, is £34 million player. Total appearances 34, goals 14, assists 16, player of the match is 3, 7.27 average rating. So he has really chipped in. And as you can see, at the age of 33, he still retains nearly all of his abilities. He's starting to lose a little bit in the acceleration and the pace, but I do believe he's perfect for Serie A. Going over to Leao, let's have a little look at his career stats for this season. So 27 appearances, 18 goals, 5 assists, 5 Player of the Match awards, and a 7.37 average rating. The only thing to show you with Rafa Leão is that the injuries are starting to pile up. He's starting to get little knocks and niggles here. 2 days, 3 days, 7 days, nothing major, but all those little accumulation of injuries is starting to take its toll on him. And then at the top of the pitch, as I said, Okafor is now playing as a striker. And his stats for the season are 29 appearances, 11 goals, 3 assists, 4 Player of the Match awards, a 7.31 average rating. So if we go into the squad planner and have a look at how our assistant is lining us up. In terms of the best 11 there, it's Milan, Hernandez, Tomori, Tior, Stanisic, Lipani, Reinders, Wirtz, Leão, Son, and Chukwueze. So interesting to see him still put Leão on the left side, Chukwueze on the right side, and he wants to play Son as centre forward. I personally would still play him as a winger, but it's a difference of opinion that obviously last season he would play Okafor there. I ended up buying into that as a striker, so maybe there is something in it. Maybe we could look at that. In terms of Reinders, I still don't get why he's there. I haven't really been playing him. He's upset, doesn't want to be at the club now. Sharon Dorr, as you can see, is the purple player for that position, which is exactly what I predicted at the start of the save. We also have Lipani, who can play both as a defensive midfielder and as the Mazzala, so that is perfect for us. Darius Sugo is the player behind him at DMC. So we are now starting to form this nucleus of players that really are going to start to drive the team forward, especially with the younger players like Wirtz, players like Sugo. We've got Son coming in for the experienced players. Chukwueze is still contributing. The team really is starting to stack up, and it really is starting to push on as a squad. In terms of the weaknesses and strengths then, so overall depth is still a problem, trying to fill in gaps as we're going along, but obviously the transfer budgets and those kinds of things play into that. Corners, Lorenzo Colombo really hasn't played any games. He played a couple of rotation games and he has been disappointing. Work rate and ethic now is being questioned. Aggression, goals against are an alarming 21 of 66 assists conceded inside the last 47 matches have come from inside the penalty area. So again, something to look at with the defensive line maybe. In terms of the strengths, we now have goalkeeper command of area, pace, jumping reach. Best player form was Chukwueze, who had a 7.94 across his last 5. Youth prospects, we have Bartasegui, Liberali, Bonomi, Frederick Nissan, Capelletti, Lassen, Mariani and Darius Stalmack, all at the club. There are quite a few good dribblers. Kicking is the strength of the goalkeepers and long throws. There are a few more there, but you get the gist of it. Basically, we need to have maybe a look at the defenders. I think we're going to need another striker going forwards. I think we need a project or somebody who can just go in there. I was trying to play Ekitike, wasn't really fitting into the role, so he might be one that only lasts a season. But it's one of those positions where you can basically swap players in and out and see who fits the bill. And eventually we will land on a striker who fits the bill. So to round up Season 3, we've won Serie A once again. Champions League, oh so close. Runners-up to Manchester United. Coppa Italia, we won that. Super Coppa Italiana is not that important, but we didn't finish in the position that the board wanted us to finish. But another fantastic season nonetheless, and we will move forwards into the next season in really, really good form. To kick off episode 4, we're going to go through all the transfers from season 4, starting off with Luca Romero. He has been allowed to go to the Middle East to join Al Fateh. A bid came in of around £15 million. He wasn't playing much. It was a no-brainer. We just decided to allow him to be moved straight on. The next player to leave was Filippo Mane. He's a player that I bought in Season 1. Well, loaned in Season 1, bought in Season 2. I think we paid around £4 million for him. We got £20 million back, so it's a good profit. He's still developing as a player, but at least we didn't sell him to another Italian club. He has gone to Al Fayha. And the next player to go was Theo Hernandez. Again, Tottenham have kind of come in, disrupted a player, managed to buy the player. I don't know whether Tottenham are that type of club. in the game. Maybe they have a lot of money to spend, but it's the second time they've come and bought one of my wing backs, which was a little bit disappointing. I wasn't particularly prepared to sell Hernandez. I think it was one that the money was there to have to take it because he become unsettled. Next up was Tijani Reinders. If you watched the previous episode, I did say that I wasn't playing him. He became disgruntled, got all of his mates to basically gang up on me and go and grass on me to the board. So as soon as this bid came in, I was so relieved to be able to show him the door because he wasn't playing football. And it was one of those where, yeah, we'll just take the cash and we'll reinvest it in the squad. So after those players left, we needed to start building again. And obviously, they keep telling me that there's a lack of quality beyond the first team. So we tried to add a few more players this time around. The first signing was Amar Dedic. Now, obviously, we have lost a couple of wing backs and we need a player who can play on both sides of the pitch. And Dedic is that player. He can play as a left back, play as a right back, can move forwards up the pitch. He's good at attacking, good at defending. It was a no-brainer. The next player to come in was Victor Gyökeres. Now, last year when FM23 was released, I managed Coventry and I sold Gyökeres. And I got told off in the comments section by somebody who said that I was criminally underrating him for the value that I got for him. Well, this time around, I have gone and bought him and I've paid £30 million for him from Sporting. So hopefully I'm not undervaluing him this time. He's going to go up top. He's going to try and get us some goals. He's not the only striker that we bought though, so there may be a case of a rotation in the first season. But I definitely have respected Gyökeres in this series. The next player we bought in was Kostas Tsimikas. Again, Hernandez had left quite late in the window, so we needed a replacement. Tsimikas was actually transfer listed for around £12.5 million. Made perfect sense. He's a player that obviously, being English, know from the Premier League, know that he's a decent player, can go forwards, can play as in advanced roles as well as being a left back. He's a good crosser of the ball, good dribbler, quite quick. He's a player that we just will snap into the left back position to replace Hernandez. We then went to Juventus and started raiding our own league. Now, once again, you need to sign Italian players so you can hit the squad registrations. And we were struggling a little bit for Italian players. So we went and bought Fabio Moretti, kind of destroyed Juventus because Moretti is a superstar in the making. And he goes in well with the likes of Lipani, Esugo and Wirtz in the middle of the park. So we now have a Wirtz, Moretti and Esugo trio, which is my absolute favourite thing so far in FM24. And the final player, and as I said, the other striker that we signed was Ivan Toney. Now you may be sitting there thinking, what have you done? But I paid £55 million, I think, up front for Toney. It's going to come to £90 million in total. But this is a player that I think is criminally underrated on this game. If he was to play for a team like an Arsenal, a Chelsea, a Liverpool, a Manchester United or Manchester City, he would be an absolute world star, and I had no problems in paying the money and taking him to Italy. So those are the investments in the team that I've made. Were the investments worth it? How did we get on in Season 4 in terms of competitions? So starting off with the Supercoppa Italiana, where we played against Inter Milan in that, and we would go on and lift the trophy there. So a good start to the season. In the Coppa Italia, though, we were disappointing, and for the first time, I think, we've gone out in the third round. Now, it wasn't such a problem because, obviously, playing less games is not a bad thing, especially when you're putting a run together for the league and the Champions League, but the board were very upset that we didn't make the final stages of the competition. But we got drawn against Atalanta, and we went out on penalties. Into the Champions League. Now, this is the one that I really, really want to win. I want to add to AC Milan's haul of Champions League trophies. We have come close. We finished runners-up last season. In the league phase this time, we managed to finish in 4th, and that meant that we have one less round to play in. But we played 8 games. We won 6. We drew 1, lost 1, had a goal difference of 20 this time. We finished on 19 points, which was just 3 behind Manchester United, who would win the league phase. So lucky for us, we skipped the playoff round straight into the round of 16, where we play against Ajax. We would beat them 4-2 on aggregate. In the quarterfinals, we would play Paris Saint-Germain, we would dismantle them 5-1 on aggregate after a 0-0 draw in the first leg. In the semi-finals, we would come up against Manchester United, who did us dirty last season. This time we dispatched of them 3-1, which was the exact scoreline they beat us in last season's final. And this year, in the final, we would go on and win the Champions League. We would win it 3-2 in extra time against Red Bull Leipzig. Fantastic way to complete the collection of trophies that we were looking for in Season 4. So with the Champions League in the bag, the next thing to look for was the league title, and we would win it once again with 92 points. We would get 92 points from 38 games, and to break that down, 29 wins, 5 draws, 4 losses with a goal difference of 68, finish on 92 points, which is miles clear of Inter once again. Napoli would finish in 3rd and Parma would finish in 4th. Now, looking at some of the stats here, you'll understand why I needed to go out and buy 2 strikers, because no striker of ours is finishing in the top 3 in terms of goals, and Joe Velic would win top goal scorer for Parma with just 22 goals. Chukwueze would be our top rated player with 7.37, and Mainan would keep 15 clean sheets. So even though it was disappointing in terms of some of the stats, to finish on 92 points and once again win Serie A is absolutely fantastic. So just to round it up, a Serie A win, a Champions League win, Supercoppa Italiana, a treble of sorts, double because I don't think the Italiana is that big of a deal. But it's completed the set that we wanted. We have now won all of the trophies available to us in Season 4, which is absolutely fantastic. A look at the finances going into Season 5 reveals that we have a transfer budget of just £16 million. Now, the outlay on the players to come in Season 4 really meant that we hit that budget really hard. As you can see by the overall balance, it's 117 million. It was previously 140, and we did spend a lot of money. We did recoup quite a bit, but we really did invest in the playing squad. And I think going into the final season, we now really have a strong squad, so there may not be too many more transfers coming in. In terms of the wage budget, 3.9 million. We have 3.4 that we are spending, so not too bad. It is creeping up all the time, which also negates the transfer budget. Looking into the club vision tab, we can see in terms of the actionable objectives, work within the wage budget is fine. Maintain the club's status as both biggest reputation in Italy and Europe, on course and reserving judgment. Maintain the club's status as the biggest team in the world now. So the board want us to go on better than Europe. They want to really stamp that authority on being the biggest team in the world. In terms of the 5-year plan, by the end of next season, they want us to reach the latter stages of the Champions League, win Serie A, and win a domestic cup. So all 3 of those are achievable. Champions League, would love to do back-to-back Champions Leagues. In terms of the board feedback, we get a B from the board. Strive to make progress on and off the pitch. Pleased with the Champions League final win against Leipzig. Pleased with the 2-2 draw against Cagliari. Not too sure why they're pleased about that. Wasn't a great game, but okay. And they were pleased with the 5-1 victory against Hellas Verona. Looking at the supporters' feedback, we get a B. So we've won the Champions League, we've won a double. Still can't get an A from the supporters. Don't know what we need to do. But overall, a B. Finish above Inter in the league, satisfied as always. Finish above Juventus, and then they now want all of those reputable teams in Italy, Europe and the world also. So a good feedback. Our job security is still only secure. Don't know what we have to do to be untouchable in FM24, but we'll take it as we head towards Season 5. So as always, to wrap up these season reviews, we're going to look at the squad going into the final season of the save. Going to look at what I think is my best 11. We will then compare that with my assistant manager's best 11 and have a look at some strengths and weaknesses and see what we can improve for Season 5, if anything. So to kick us off, let's look at my best 11. Got Mainan in goal, as always. Tsimikas on the left, Tomori, Tior and Stanisic as a back 4. I think that is solid, even though we lost Hernandez. Tsimikas is a decent replacement. We've then got Asugo, Moretti and Wirtz. As I said, I love this trio as a midfield combination. They are absolutely fantastic. On the left, we have Son. On the right, we have Leao. And up top, we have Ivan Toney. So let me just show you quickly Wirtz career stats for the season. He has played 34 games, scored 12 goals from the middle of the park, 10 assists, 2 Player of the Match awards, and a 7.04 average rating. Moretti was a later addition, but if we have a little look at him, 17 appearances, 4 goals, 5 assists, 1 Player of the Match award, and a 6.92. And then Asugo, he's been rotated in and out of the team with Lipani, but he played 30 times, 1 goal, 5 assists, 1 Player of the Match, and a 7.01. Son is still having a good influence on the team, moving left and right sides of the pitch. 17 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. Liao now switching to the right, but does also come back to the left. Had another solid season. 34 games, 9 goals, 9 assists, 6 Player of the Match awards. Once again, though, if we go into the injuries, you'll see that he has really started to pick up all of those little injuries, and they are starting to accumulate. So maybe something to take into consideration for Season 5. And then finally, Ivan Toney. He came in, as I said, for £90 million. 55 of that was up front. 11 appearances, 5 goals, and a 6.76 average rating. So not setting the world alight straight away, but I do think he will get better as he beds into this team and as he adapts to the way that we play football. So then let's go into the squad planner, and as always, look at the best 11 according to our assistant manager. So Mainan, Dedic, Tomori, Tior, Stanisic, Lipani, Moretti and Wirtz for him, Leao, Chukwueze and Okafor still. So don't agree with his striker selection. I do think Ivan Toney will be the one to go in there. Chukwueze could easily play in that position still. He's still a fine footballer who is rotating in with Son. Yeah, absolutely fine with that pick. Lipani and Asugo are pretty much two in the same. They could interchange into that position. The back four is okay. Dedic over Tsimikas is fine by me. If we go into the assistant report, goalkeeper depth, overall depth are still issues. I think Italy is a really difficult league to manage in because you need to have players who are trained at the club for 3 years. You need to have 8 homegrown players. You can only have a couple of non-EU slots a season, although they do keep resetting every season. But to get depth in the squad, you need to really be buying Italian players. You can't buy foreign players. So it is really difficult to fill your squad and fill it with depth. Some of the others, goals against, tackling, punching, aggression. In terms of strength, though, youth prospects with a number of those youth players from last season still at the club. Impressive level of creativity and vision. Dribbling is positive. Jumping reach, pace, flair, kicking, defensive depth. So there are some very good things, but we do have some weaknesses still. And I think working towards season 5, we will go into that with a really, really good squad that will only get stronger. So once again, season 4 is complete. Serie A, Champions League, Supercoppa Italiana. What an absolutely fantastic season. To kick us off on episode 5 and the final season of The Save, we're going to look back at all of the transfers across season 5. Starting us off is Serginho Dest. He was brought in to play as a left back and also play as a right back for us, but we had already brought in some players that basically bumped him down the pecking order. He decided he wanted to move on. He's another player that has gone out to the Middle East and joined Al Fateh. The next player to leave was Tanguy Ndombele. Now, I actually laughed when I unveiled Ndombele, but I did pick him up for £5 million, and I actually managed to move him on for £28 million, which is an absolute fantastic amount considering what I paid and the fact he has gone to Al Shabab, and I think we have robbed them blind. The final player to leave in the save is Charles de Ketelaere. He's a player that I couldn't really figure out. I absolutely loved him a couple of versions of the game ago, and then trying to manage him in this game is confusing. He wants to play as a striker, but he's best suited to be an attacking midfielder, but I don't use one. He can play as a midfielder, so never really fitted into my system. Got disgruntled, wanted to leave, went to Liverpool. Simple as that. So with those 3 players leaving, it meant for the final season, I had one last shot at filling the squad out in terms of the depth. And we started off by signing Moise Kean, just for a bit of depth on each wing, and obviously he can play as a centre forward or a striker. He's another player, a bit like Luka Jovic from season 1, that you can't really put your finger on why it hasn't gone very well for him. He had all this promise early on at Juventus, kind of went to PSG, Everton, went back to Juventus. It's not really worked out for him, but there is still something there. Our scouts said that he could be worth something to us, so we picked him up for around about £15 million. It wasn't a world-breaking transfer, not expecting big things from him, but he can be a rotation option when we need him, which is exactly what we wanted. The next player to come in was Presnel Kimpembe. He actually came in on a free transfer. PSG had allowed him to leave for nothing. Put him on 110 grand a week, stick him at centre-back, and he's good to go. He's an upgrade, really, on what we have. Certainly, if not an upgrade, he's level with the likes of Tomori and Tior, and he's a player that will have a positive influence on the squad, as well as the save, I think, towards the end of the save. The next player to come in was Roger Ibanez. He's another player who was let go of. He went to Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia. He was let go of from there. We've brought him back to Italian football. Probably not going to use him as a starter, but he's certainly a good rotation piece. The next player to come in was Giacomo Faticanti. Now, we are pretty covered in terms of central midfield. Can also drop back and play a defensive midfielder. But once again, those rules around Italian players and needing to fill the squad with the right types of players meant that we needed to go and sign an Italian midfielder. And that's exactly what we did. And the final signing, and this one is genius. Couldn't turn it down. It popped up as an intermediary. These two players that we have got through intermediaries have been absolutely fantastic. And if this is how it works in Football Manager, I really am looking forward to the whole run of this game. Because we managed to sign Mohamed Salah. We have brought him back to Italy and we have got him at the age of 35. Now, we paid £30 million, I think, for him. But it's an absolute no-brainer. Still retains a lot of his ability. Okay, the pace has dropped to 12. The acceleration's dropped off to 14. But he's still a player who could still play in any of the top leagues. Decided it was such a good thing we could not turn it down. He's on £400,000 a week, which is more than Son on £300,000, and it did disrupt a lot of the players who wanted bigger deals, but I could not turn it down. Absolutely fantastic to have Mo Salah, even if it was just for 6 months, as we did this deal in January. So those are the final players to come in and complement the squad. How would they gel together? Can we go out on a high in Season 5? Let's jump to the competitions and find out. So to kick off the final roundup of competitions in Season 5, we start with the UEFA Super Cup. We went up against Chelsea, who won the Europa League, and we beat them 5-3 to lift our second Super Cup. In the Supercoppa Italiana, unfortunately, we were drawn against Inter in the final of that, where we would go down 3-2. In the Coppa Italia, we would come in at the third round, where we were drawn against Monza. We beat them 7-1. In the quarterfinals, we would play against Fiorentina, where we needed extra time to go through 3-2. In the semi-finals, we played off against Brescia, where we won 8-1 on aggregate. And in the final, we would get our revenge against Inter Milan, as we would beat them 2-1 to lift the Coppa Italia. We would begin the defence of our Champions League by playing in the league phase, but we didn't perform very well there. Finished in 15th place, played 8 games, we won 4 of them, drew 2, lost 2, had a goal difference of 9, and we finished on 14 points. That put us just 2 points off of Real Madrid, who finished in 8th, but it did put us 8 points off of PSG, who went through as league phase winners. That meant that we go into the playoff round, where we were drawn against Leverkusen. We beat them 4-1 on aggregate. Going into the round of 16, we'd be drawn against Manchester United, and unfortunately, Manchester United would once again be our scourge in the Champions League, so they would knock us out 5-4 in the round of 16. That would then just leave us the Serie A to go for, and Serie A we would win. Another league trophy, that is now 5 in a row for AC Milan. 92 points once again, that is the magic number. I think we have won the league with 92 points in 3 out of 5 seasons maybe. This time around, we won 30 games, we drew 2, we lost 6, had a goal difference of 86, and finished on 92 points. This time around, Napoli pushed us all the way to the end. Only 6 points behind for Napoli. They are the closest that any team, I think, has been to catching us in the league. Inter finishing miles behind once again, and Juventus in 4th. Now, Ivan Toney, I said at the end of episode 4, would come good for AC Milan. Ivan Toney scored more goals in a single season than Oliver Giroud. He got 33 league goals in a single season and finished as the top goal scorer. Dusan Vlahovic got 30 and he still couldn't get near Toney. Chukwueze was our top average rater with 7.4. Moretti and Wirtz both got 12 assists each. Kostas Tsimikas is down there on the yellow cards with 11, and Milan managed to get 15 clean sheets. So once again, we have won Serie A. It's been fantastic, winning 5 in a row. So to round it all up then, Serie A in the bag, another league title, Champions League, Manchester United once again. Are they OP in this game? Maybe so. They are definitely OP when it comes to AC Milan. Super Cup in the bag, Coppa Italia in the bag, and runners up in the Supercoppa Italiana. Now, obviously, the finances aren't that important going forward because this is the end of the save and the series. But if we were to continue on, or if we look at how we would leave the club, there would be a transfer budget of £27 million, be a wage budget of £5.1 million. The overall balance of the club is £187 million. So it is infinitely better than when we took over the club at the start of the save. In terms of the club vision, the actionable objectives to work within the wage budget on course, maintain the club's status as the most reputable team in Europe, Italy and now the world were on course to do all of those things. By the end of next season, they would want to reach the latter stage of the Champions League, win the league title again, and then my contract would be up for renewal. We finish off with a B- from the board, and our job security only being secure. I don't know what they expect from us. 5 league titles, Champions League, Europa League, Super Cups. Still only a B-. They are pleased with the 6-0 win over Venezia, 3-0 win against Juventus, and a 2-0 win against Cagliari. In terms of the supporters, so they give us a B- also. They are happy to have finished above Inter in the league for a change. They're pleased. Finish above Juventus. Maintain the club's status as reputable of Italy, Europe and the world. We are on course. And they are also happy again about the 2-0 win over Cagliari, 6-0 win over Venezia and a 3-0 win against Juventus. Criticisms, disappointed with the sale of Noah Okafor. That is actually one that I missed at the start. Okafor kind of was asking to leave. His contract was running down. He hasn't moved to another club yet, but I do think he will be finalising a deal to move away. Still technically has left the club and they are unhappy about that. And then, what was the other supporters one? 1-1 draw, and then disappointed with Moise Kean, which I think everybody is, but we give him the benefit of the doubt and tried to get something out of him. So let's have one last look at the squad and how it's left as we leave the end of Season 5. So as always, we're going to have a quick look at what I think was my best 11 across the season. And then we will go into the assistant managers and see how he compares with mine. Starting off, we have gone through the entire save with the 4-3-3 in place. And for me, the best 11 probably this season was Mainan, Dedic, Kimpembe, Tior and Stanisic as a back four and a goalkeeper. Lipani has kind of just jumped ahead of Asugo. As I said, they are one in the same. So basically, either of those could have gone in there. Moretti and Wirtz are just beasts in the middle of the park for us. Rafa Leao is now on the left. Mo Salah takes up the right. And Ivan Toney will finish up top. If we really wanted to be funny, we could put Son on the left and finish with a Premier League trio up top. But they have been all fantastic. Once again, if we show you just some of the stats, starting off with Florian Wirtz, 37 games, 13 goals, 12 assists. Onto Moretti, who's now got his first full season under his belt at Milan. He chipped in 34 games, 14 goals, 12 assists and 1 player of the match award. Going over and looking at Leao, he had a season which included 36 games, 14 goals, 11 assists, 3 player of the match awards. Mo Salah was only with the club after the January transfer window, but he played 16 games, scored 9 goals, had 9 assists, and had 3 Player of the Match awards, 7.38 average rating. And then Ivan Toney, absolutely ridiculous. 37 games, 33 goals, 6 assists, 4 Player of the Match awards. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, actually scored 52 goals in 57 games. Absolutely fantastic season for Ivan Toney. There's a joke there about backing him, but don't know if that's the right thing to say. But anyway, yeah, certainly he had my backing to go on and be a success in this save. If we go into the report and look at the best 11 then, so our assistant manager would go with Mainan, Dedic, Kimpembe, Tior and Stanisic also, Lipani, Moretti and Wirtz, Leao, Salah and Toney. So for the first time in 5 seasons, we match up position for position on the pitch. I could have been funny and just changed Asugo for Lipani, but I actually agree this time he has got it spot on. So instead of going in and looking at the strengths and weaknesses, let's go to the club info, go to the history and the overview. And then you can see now we have 8 Champions Leagues, with the latest one being in 2027. FIFA Club World Cup, we didn't actually get to play in. It would come, I think they've changed the format, so the next one we will play in at another time. We managed to win Serie A 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Super Cup 24, 27. Europa League for the first time we managed to win that trophy. I think we won that in the first season, didn't we? 2024. Coppa Italia is now up to 8. So all in all, it's been an absolutely fantastic save. AC Milan are a brilliant team in real life. Like I said, one of the teams with the biggest heritage and history, and every time you think about Italian football, the red and black, synonymous with all those teams from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even through to the 90s, the 2000s, to the current day, the world stars, the big players. It's been an absolute pleasure to manage this team in Football Manager 2024. But sadly, that is the end of the series. All good things come to an end, but don't worry, there will be another series coming onto the channel at some point. It will be in the near future. It's going to be a team in England. It won't be a team in the Premier League. I won't announce it just yet. You'll have to stay tuned to find out who that team is going to be. Should be a very, very good save. Before you leave the channel, don't forget to hit the like on this video just to support the channel, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content that is coming to the channel. There will be a lot of it now that FM24 is ramping up, and it's going to come out full very, very soon. So the videos will start to come thick and fast. You don't want to miss any of it. Before you go, there are some videos already on the channel, things like Wonder Kids, Let's Plays. There are for FM24 now, FM23. We have also got things like hints, tips, tutorials, a little bit of something for everybody on the channel. But for this one, thank you for joining me on this ride in Italy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, I'll see you on another video very soon.